All right, welcome to the Core A podcast. This week we have a very special guest. We have Alex Valle, also known as Mr. Street Fighter, one of the old school veterans of the FGC and Street Fighter. Welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Doing great, guys. I know you guys are in the future right now. Over here is like the evening, so hope you guys are not too tired in the morning. And I'm getting a little tired for the evening. No, I'm just. It's great to be here, guys.
Yeah.
It's good to hear you guys. From across the pond, the big
Yes.
pond.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for doing this. And yeah, I guess just to get started, I mean, I guess we asked this to, a lot of guests.
Right.
But I think it'll mean something different asking
Okay.
Alex Valle about this, because this is...
Is this gonna be so generic?
It's a generic question, but it's like, it's a question about how did you get into Street Fighter, right?
Oh,
and we're
that
asking this to
question.
Mr. Street Fighter,
Okay.
right? So it's...
And I'm sure you've heard this millions of times too. Like, oh, when did you
Yeah,
play
when
your
did
first video
your first
game?
time or
Oh.
whatever. But the thing is, I guess we ask people this question a lot.
It's one of
And-
those things that I don't. Sorry to interrupt. It's one of those things that, man, we gotta be different. We gotta be special. Let's not do stuff that other people ask. But then, whenever the guest is so prestigious, it always means, like that question itself, like you said, it can be amplified differently, right? So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hope we didn't hype up this question too much. But yeah, basically,
it's the
yeah.
first question.
What's your first experience with Street Fighter, and how did you get into it? What made you want to get good at it?
So
Basically.
are we talking about Street Fighter 1? Are we talking about World Warrior? Which one are we talking about? The very
All
first
right.
Street Fighter
So,
I
There
so
played?
you
this
go.
this
See,
is why.
told you.
Yeah, I told. This is why this is an interesting question,
Yeah.
right? Because like most people, like for me, I started with World Warrior. That was like I went to the arcade and I saw that, it instantly changed my life and changed the world, changed the arcade, right? Street Fighter 1 didn't have that glory. So I'm wondering, like, I mean, I'm sure you played Street Fighter 1, but how was your foray into Street Fighter? Was it like you saw 1 and you're like, this is all right, and then like when 2 came out, you're like, oh, okay, I'm going to be really into this, or are you just like, oh, when 1 came out, you had this, you fell in love immediately? What was your...
To be fair, I
foray
never
into
heard
it?
of anyone who said they fell in love with Street Fighter 1. So if anyone does, it'll be the first.
Okay, all right. Well, yeah.
So here we go.
That's the context of the question.
All right. I've definitely had this question many times, but I'll tell it this way to give a bit more context of like early arcade culture. This is before like the golden ages of 90s fighting game, in all its glory, right? So Street Fighter 1 came out in like the late 80s, okay? A lot of people that you guys know in the FGC were not even born 10, 15 years into it. So I was
Yeah.
a kid still, okay? I was a kid. I used to go to arcades a lot. My parents used to take me to like, all random types of arcades, Chuck E. Cheese or whatnot. And when I saw Street Fighter 1, I was like, okay, what is this? And obviously nobody's playing 2 players how Street Fighter is, played today, right? So I'm like, all right, okay, it's like a fight. Is this like Punch Out? Like you're fighting against computer, but there's like another joystick there, right? And I'm like, okay, so whatever. So I treated it like that. I treated it like a Punch Out game. Like I'm trying to.
Okay.
But you're fighting one-on-one opponents, right? And you're going through it, and I'm like, I feel like I can't do anything, right? Because you're jumping around, playing around, and then once in a while you get a special move, and I'm like, what is this game? Like, all right, well, I didn't really understand it fully because I thought, at least in Punch Out, like, you get the moves out, you can dodge, you can sway, you can do quick punches. You can cut. It's more intuitive, right, for the Punch Out games. So I'm like, okay, whenever I got to an arcade, I would probably play it see how far I would get, right? And then you would die somewhere around like Gen or Birdie or some weird cheap character that would just smoke you.
Yeah, they're cheap. Yeah.
Right. So like time has passed, and I didn't really treat that game like, it was like the next coming, right? Like I don't think anybody saw this, right? Nobody like really was ready for this. Okay. So few years passed, right? So this is like 1991 now, okay? And like, coming into age now where I'm coming from like 8th grade going into high school, right? So like now I can ride my bike out to places. I don't have to rely on my parents to drop me off to these things. And I didn't really find Street Fighter 2 at an arcade yet. You know, I was just doing my errands, doing my rounds. Like, you know, my mom's like, hey, here's like $5. Give me some quarters from the 7-Eleven. You know, remember that when you had to do that back in? Oh, well, I'm telling my age. Back then, you had to like get change, right? Your parents give you like, here, $10, $5.
No, I remember that.
Quarters, right? To go get change.
Oh yeah.
So I went over there at 7-Eleven, right? And to try to get my mom some change, as the big word here is try. And I just see like a couple like kids, well, you know, people around my age or a little older, at the time playing this, you know, Street Fighter 2, and I'm like, oh yeah, this sounds familiar, right? Like, because you haven't seen it in a few years, like, but it sounds familiar. But it's a completely revamped version of Street Fighter 1, and it looked like they were having a lot of fun, and I was curious, right? So I got my mom some change, but you know, just like any other kid, I would grab some of her quarters. and just try it out, right? And I'm just kind of like flailing around. Okay, cool. But that's not where it ended, right? It's the first place I saw it was a 7-Eleven, and then I'm like, okay, I'm pretty hungry. I'm gonna go to like the burger joint, local burger joint in the same little shopping plaza. I went over there. It's a place called Bun and Burger, and lo and behold, you know, there was another Street Fighter 2 machine there. So this is about the time where, I mean, arcade games were at convenience stores before Street Fighter 2. But like, you know, they had like, at the era, like you would see Pac-Man, Galaga, random, like small redemption game or something. And then like the little arcade corner in the convenience stores grew a bit. But Street Fighter 2 ended up being one of the first ones, like at every single convenience store. So I saw it at the burger joint, and there was even more people playing over there. I'm like, what the hell? It's kind of like if you look at the modern age, right? You go to the battle lounge, you'll see like maybe a 2 or 3 people at a little battle lounge. You go to another battle lounge, you see like 5-10 people. Like, okay, you know, like, but this is just 2 occurrences that I've seen this, and I'm like, all right, if Street Fighter 2 was at my 7-Eleven, which was across the street of my old place, and this burger joint, it's gotta be at my arcade. So I was super excited. Right? I'm like just like cheesing. I'm like, oh man, I can't wait to like go to my arcade, see if it has it, because I still went to the arcade by myself and played all kinds of random games. Right, I was an arcade rat. That's what people just call us. So you know, I eventually, you know, went home and gave my mom, I think, like $3 or something cents back. She got mad at me, and but you know how it is, dude. And then I'm like, okay, whatever. And then later on, I went to the arcade, and lo and behold, Street Fighter 2 had like 10, 15. Let me see here. I always say around 10 to like 15 machines, but it was true. It was like 5 machines, 1 row. I lived in a place where the arcade by my house, it was size of like, if you go to a little strip mall and it's 2 office buildings or something, it's about the size of that, right? And it's just extended rows. So in the front, it's like the cashier register. There's like candies, and you can get your change and a couple change machines. And then it has them in rows. There's rows of stand-up American cabinets, you know, all the favorites there, right? Street Fighter 2, 10 to 15 of them, man. There was like, of course, there were like 3 or 4 of them in the front. There was one. Like,
do you still remember the name of the arcade?
Beach and Warner Arcade was the arcade at the time where I first saw Street Fighter 2. Yeah, this was like in Orange County, Southern California, in the city of Huntington Beach. Okay.
So, I mean, during this time, you're seeing these cabinets and you're seeing these players. I mean, at one point, you must have felt like a competitive urge, right? Because it's not just. It was a head-to-head game, right? So maybe you're getting to that.
How far of the journey of like the surprise towards the, like, you wanted to be good at it, like how long was that journey?
Okay, so that's why I had to explain it this way, because I have to show you guys like my love for just the arcades was like just who's playing the games. It's like the games are cool
Right.
and it brings me there, right? But like, I was more interested in like the people playing it and see what they were doing, you know, and maybe I can beat their high score. So it was like I always had a competitive edge somewhere. And I mean that all started back when like I used to play, you know, Nintendo games with my uncle and my dad, and way back in the days, you know, like who would beat the game in like Mario without losing a life, or uh, the most lives in a
Points.
in a game.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, there was
yeah.
little
I mean,
challenges,
yeah, you
right?
can. Yeah, back then you can kind of play. It was more like who got the high score. That was kind of the
Yes.
thing.
Yeah.
That's why you have the initials that you put, like in Pac-Man or whatever.
That's
But
the bragging rights you get.
yeah, that's bragging rights you get. But like Street Fighter kind of changed everything because that was the game where you didn't care about the high score. They still had the initials you could put,
If you
but it
think
was more
about it-
about like beating the other opponent, right?
Yes.
So that was
Yeah.
kind of a big change with that game, right?
Yeah. So when I saw this, right, it's like I fell in love with like many things. Like, of course, you know, my arcade is already loved the arcade, right? And a new game comes out, I like, you know, whatever games it was before Street Fighter, you get really happy and you try it out and whatever, you have your time with it. But it was not only a new game, it was everybody was playing at like in many there was many arcade cabinets of this same game. No, not many arcades had that type of like impact, you know, like it's just
Yeah.
since like Pac-Man, Donkey Kong days, right, when those games were everywhere. You see a bunch of Pac-Mans, a bunch of Galagas, a bunch of like Donkey Kongs, right, until a lot of other games came in. Street Fighter 2 did that during the 90s, and this was just an amazing phenomenon. And I didn't even know how to play the game, so
Yeah.
Okay.
I had that explosion happen. Plus, I was eager to learn the game, and then to now that I can play people, I didn't have to like just beat people like do a punch out style or you know, wait my turn and stuff like you know, without a person. Yeah, I just had a really good time like learning the game to finally become competitive. And that you know, that wasn't a walk in the park, man. That took a while. It took like, I mean, the game came out, right? It took like a couple months to at least get my bearings right, because it costs money to play. It wasn't just like, oh, you can go
That too,
sit
yes.
in training mode and then learn the missions and the tutorials. Yeah, none of that. There wasn't even like move lists or anything, and there was just people that wouldn't tell
That's
you how
right.
it worked. So you literally
Yeah.
were your own like you had to, you know, show initiative that you wanted to play.
Yeah.
And that's another
Yeah,
thing
yeah.
too, like the community
For the
was
same reasons,
huge.
like
Yeah.
like the fact that you have to put money, and then the fact that there's like no well-known or secrets or movelets. I was one of those guys in the arcades where I did have the like a bit of change to play, but I would have the eyes and the ears to see and pick out, oh, I should do that, or I shouldn't do that. And then even though I had the chance to you know, put my money in and be my turn, there were times where I'll be like, I'll just let someone else play so I can get more information to make my money's worth.
Oh
You know
yeah,
what
yeah.
I mean?
It was
like
there's a
the
lot of
waiting game of making my money's worth.
Yeah, there's very creative ways to understand and learn the game at that time, because like Alex was saying, there's no move lists or strategy guides. You just played, and the information was in the players in the arcade, and you had to get it from them. I remember
Over the shoulder.
yeah, over the shoulder. But I remember like so this guy was doing a fatality in Mortal Kombat, and I was looking over his shoulder to see what input he was doing, and he covered his hands to do the fatality. Yeah, he
Damn.
covered his hand. I was like, what? Like nowadays, like that makes no sense because you can find the information anywhere. But like back then, that was crazy. But yeah,
Imagine covering your hand for a Hadouken. Well, you do need two hands to execute it.
No, that'd be too hard, I think. Yeah, but I mean, yeah. So I guess how did you get good? Yeah, that's
Yeah.
crazy. How do you get good in that era?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh well, man. In that era, you literally have to see what people were doing, you know, and you had to ask questions. You had to have like the balls to ask questions. A lot of people were like, remember in the arcade back before Street Fighter 2, there weren't very. It wasn't like community talking to each other unless you saw the same person in a while, right? You finally build friendships, but like.
Yeah.
You were so wowed by certain people that played certain characters. Eventually, you're gonna hear, "How'd you do that?" Right? Or how you do that?
Oh yeah.
Right? And people didn't understand the concept of like holding charge for 2 seconds or or rolling the
That was
stick,
new too. Yes.
right?
Yeah.
That was and it had like I mean it had 6 buttons before, but people that never really played Street Fighter 1, they still are kind of like, what? Like just 6 buttons and a controller? This is too crazy because
Yeah.
most arcade games have 4 buttons as the most,
Yeah.
right? Or 3
to
or
4
2
was
right?
the
Traditionally, right? You know, attack, punch, and jump, or magic, or something like that,
Yeah.
right?
Special move.
Yeah. So you had to ask. You had to befriend a lot of people. You had to like find out what they were playing too. Some people didn't get Street Fighter 2 for a hot minute. They didn't have it at their arcades. Like I was at one of the hotspots in my area, right?
Yeah.
So like they would only come out in the weekend or whatever, and then it was just they got it's pretty much they got information from like a hotspot arcade, and they took it back to their arcade, and then they kind of just went on, and that's how the information went. And going to your like Mortal Kombat thing, look, I had a buddy that used to sell fatalities. That's why they covered their hands.
What? He sold
yeah.
them?
He
Soul fatalities?
No,
Yeah,
okay,
he
wait,
sold
wait. This makes
Oh.
sense. This makes sense. There's DLC fatalities now. So selling fatalities happened all the way back with Mortal Kombat 1.
That your friend
That's
is
crazy.
a pioneer of paid DLC.
Yeah, definitely
yeah.
That
the
is
future. Yeah, that
crazy.
is.
Oh,
Yeah.
for sure, brother, for sure.
Selling oh my god, that is
Right.
new.
That's a new
Okay.
hustle. I've seen FGC, like people have some crazy hustles, but I never heard of that one.
It's
That's the
definitely
first one.
business minded.
Okay,
right?
all
Like,
right.
they're the geniuses that's within our community who I wouldn't say take advantage of, but like side hustling is the right kind of term, right? Like they enjoy the game as well as make some money out of it. It's like, oh damn.
Yeah, get more quarters, man. So you can practice more. That's how you get. This is part of getting good,
Yeah.
right?
And I'm sure that he did it with the confidence because at the time, at the era where there's no internet, if he sold the fatality, the vendor also knows that the buyer will kind of deem it very sacred and won't spill the beans,
Well, yeah,
right?
yeah.
Even with the risk of that being like spread like mouth to mouth, I think the vendor like Vaye's friend knew that he won't.
Yeah,
spill
it's
it,
like
right?
Patreon
Yeah,
content.
yeah.
You can rip Patreon
Yeah.
content if you really want, but it's like,
Hey,
I
it
don't know.
didn't stop there.
Yeah.
He did it on NBA Jam, pretty much every Midway game.
oh, NBA Jam has
They
so
have
many
a lot of
codes.
secrets.
That one has so many
Yeah.
secrets. Big head code. You can
That's
be like,
one thing with Midway now, NetherRealms, they like to hide a lot of Easter eggs, and
yeah,
that's,
yeah.
that
There was
a
like the
thing.
rare version of NBA Jam. I think one of my arcades back in Texas, my hometown, had a cabinet with Michael Jordan in it. Like it was like the
Wait,
rare
Michael
one.
Jordan was a secret.
Yeah, so no, it wasn't a secret. Yeah, he was just actually in there, and it was like a very like some limited edition. I don't think it was a hack. I think they just like
Certain
produced
versions
it,
have it.
and then they were like, "Oh
Ah.
shoot, we can't. Michael Jordan's going to sue the shit out of us, and then they
Oh,
just
they
like
did it without his permission.
yeah, I think it was something like that where there was a very few caps and there's like a really rare. I don't know if you know anything about that. This is NBA Jam talk. This is
Right.
NBA Jam was so good.
It's so fun.
Yeah,
you had like
anyways.
Mortal Kombat characters and stuff.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
was
yeah.
really
They had
fun
like
to-
they started putting midway characters
Yeah.
in there. But anyways, yeah, we're getting off topic. We're just like getting giddy
These
over
are
like
cool
old
stories,
school,
though.
old school arcade stories. Okay, yeah. But yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
But yeah, just the competitiveness of it is like eventually once people like got better at the game, then you start seeing who are the best players of certain characters. And I mean, obviously Guile was the first one people kind of learned pretty quickly. He was
Ooh,
just
yeah.
too good, right? No matter
Yeah.
who you picked, he was just too overpowered. But people still tried their favorite characters. They just try to be the best of their characters, and nobody knew matchups. People are having fun, but mainly
Yeah.
the Guiles, and then like the Dhalsims, right? Those are the two top tier characters, and then from there it's
Yeah.
just people flailing around trying to like even stand a chance. If there was no Guile or Dhalsim, like Zangief, right? Because if he power
Yeah.
drives you once, it's pretty much over.
Yeah, but you couldn't choose the same character then. There was no mirror match in World Warrior.
Yep.
So if someone picked Guile, they could just stay on Guile, and if no one can beat that Guile, then
No one else could.
no
pick
one
him.
else could pick Guile. Yeah, yeah.
And another thing I need to mention here though is like I definitely did not play at where like the top players of Street Fighter 2 played. Not at all. Like I wasn't. I didn't actually play in that era. I'm sure you guys asked me questions down the road about this, but like I didn't play at the like Tomo, Mike Watson infancy of like tournament
Ah.
like rivalry. Like when those guys were
Okay.
like the me and Choi's down the road, right? It's like those guys were like the
Right.
fathers of this stuff in the U.S. And
Yeah.
you know that's just how it was. And I had to figure that out down the road. Like I had to travel to various arcades as I got older, but you know that was already an alpha era by the time I was able to like travel around and you know go to a buddy's car. I'm no longer on a bike. So yeah, everything happened so fast, man.
Yeah.
Everything happened so fast, and it was just a few years to like get from. You ever figure it? Like it's 1996 is when Alpha 2 came out. 1991, 92 is when Street Fighter 2 came out. That's not that long if you think about like the
Yeah.
modern age of
Yeah.
games. But it
Yeah.
felt like an eternity back then. But that's
Oh, yeah.
how many years I missed of top level Street Fighter 2. Like I didn't play versus
Wow.
any of those guys until the Alpha series. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So were you
Okay.
kind of in like your own did you have your own bubble, separate bubble of players that you were kind of practicing with, but you just ended up beating them all the time and you didn't really get good practice? Or was it kind of like, did you actually train up pretty well in your own scene with people that maybe we don't know about?
No, there were some players from my region that did play. So it's a beautiful like story and a culmination of like how we all met. And like in Orange County, the region that I'm from, the two top players in that region were Tao Duong and Jeff Schaefer. Jeff Schaefer is definitely number one from my region versus like Los Angeles County. I mean, right? Los Angeles County had the Tomo and Watson, right? And a bunch of
Watson,
great
yeah.
players up there. And they used to play in an arcade called World's Finest. Well, it's a comic book shop called World's Finest. And it's another thing. I never attended to any of those. I just heard like many
Oh.
stories. But that was, like the Mikado, the Game Newton.
Yeah.
That was like the Southern Hills. Dude, that was like the mecca of, SoCal Street
Yeah.
Fighter 2 legacy. Right. So, but
Yeah.
anyways, through Tao Duong and Jeff Schaefer, I met Mike Watson eventually. So it took that many years for the communication, and when I got older, for Mike to even like finally take a challenge. Yeah. So
Yeah, I guess would you say Mike Watson would be your first like rival, or like how did the rivalry start, and in what games are we talking about? Of course, there's many versions of Street Fighter 2. I remember like if you look at Tomo Ohira, he was like the god at hyper fighting, like
Hyper-fighting.
Super or just Street Fighter 2 Turbo before they added Super, right?
yeah.
But then like during that time there were different versions of the game, and I guess in a sense like back then it wasn't like DLCs, seasons, or anything like that. It was like the versions of the games that would come out, and that's the version that everyone played. But usually I imagine everyone played kind of the latest version that had come out. So do you have any was there any game that was particular for the early rivalries of the game? Is there like this is the game that you prove yourself in, or was it kind of like a bunch of various games and was it like that, or
okay,
how did that competition come about?
All right. So I would say I developed my skills to be like, now like looking back, to be a competitive tournament player since like Champion Edition, but I didn't know where the tournaments were. Like I was
Okay.
decent, right? I wasn't good and I wasn't, great. I was beating my, several pockets of my region, but and all of this is word of mouth. You have to like bounce around. You have to call. Like I don't know if you guys are familiar with like so we have the arcades back in the days trying to figure out who's who. The pool hall scene was the same. They had those sharks. They would call
I
up
see.
and
Yeah.
they would set up matches, right? They would call like who's over there. It was the same ordeal, but I mean, I wasn't at that level yet. But once we
Sure.
got older and we had to figure these things out on our own, we like, hey, is that one guy that plays Ken? Is he over there right now?
Yeah.
Like to make it worth our while to drive or to ride our bikes there, right?
That's
because
right.
we would hate
Yeah.
to go all this way, waste our entire day, and the person that frequents there that's good is not there, right? So
Yes,
like,
yes.
it was like that. So to me, like I didn't find good enough opponents. I mean, to the level of like Mike and them for a long time. Like I would play good
Right.
players,
Yeah.
and we would have these all right, back and forth, you know, Ryu mirror matches, Ken Ryu and whatever, right? And we're just putting in so many quarters, and we don't know if we're getting any better, but we were just on the grind, right? And then yeah, I mean it paid off. We were beating people left and right. We would a group of us would go to different arcades and convenience stores, comic book places, and it was okay. But then it kind of fizzled out because, you know, we didn't really prove ourselves in tournaments. We didn't know where they were. We didn't even know that scene yet. The only random tournaments I've entered were like a Pizza Hut. No, not Pizza Hut. It was like a Shakey's, and then like a video store. I just happened to walk in and there was a tournament there. So it took me like, even though this is how many years I've been going to the arcade, until 1995, and this was like around Street Fighter Alpha 1. This is where I met Mike Watson. Okay, Street Fighter Alpha 1, right? And he's already like dominated SoCal, you know. So and like you know, and it just took that story is like kind of where like a different type of rivalry. Like it's more like mentor and protege, right? So like, it's one of those things. I don't think I was Mike's rival at all at that point. Yeah, because he was still like he beat me up on like Alpha, and I thought I was hot shit in Alpha 1. And he just beat my ass on that game, and I got frustrated, and I'm like, you want to play any of the old games? Because I'm like, yeah, you know, I had that in the back burner. And he looks at me, he's all like, all right, man, let's do it. And he just beats me up in the older games even worse. And I'm like,
same result. Damn. Yeah, but worse. Yeah.
See, even the great Alex Vaya goes through that phase where I thought I was the best, but there are like much greater people in the bigger universe.
Oh,
right?
yeah. But
that is awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess so there must have been a point where so you're getting better. If you're playing someone like Mike Watson, I'm sure he respected you as a player, even though you were his protege. To be Mike Watson's protege during that time, you had to be at a certain level, right? And so I guess how did your journey into getting better and ending up playing with the best of the best become? Would you say that Mike Watson was kind of almost like your teacher at that time, and then he equipped you with the tools to make it to national status?
Yes, definitely. He was definitely one of my mentors. Jeff Schaefer as well, Tao Duong, and like his circle of friends, like his network of individual players from different regions. Like he knew everyone. You know, like he knew all the best players. He knew all the intermediate players. He even knew like what we call the scrubs that would still beat people like me, or like you know, just,
whoa, that's a big ordeal.
Like, he just like he was that ahead, right? And it just I think it was when the time period from Alpha 1 to Alpha 2, you know, like just. It motivated me to become a better player, because I never played anybody like that ever. You know, somebody who could beat me that bad. Minus when I first learned the game, when I didn't know anything. This is when I thought I knew what I knew, and like, damn, this is like surreal. Like I couldn't touch him. I couldn't do anything, and he controlled the match. And he told me a few pointers back then, just like, you know, like why he plays Ryu, or like what I'm doing, and I'm just trying to get a hit so bad, and he's just controlling the match. He's just controlling the pace. Like he's seen what I'm doing, or I'm too eager, and then he knows when to attack. He knows when I'm afraid. Like it's just, he doesn't have to say it at the time. Like, you know, I'm saying this as an experienced player now, but looking back, it's like, you know, he just read my mind as soon as I moved the character. Like, you know, like he knows what I'm gonna do the first few seconds, right? So I'm like, oh, and then from there he just goes through it. So. From there, I went heavily into the tournament scene, because he was the one that told me where the real stuff was at, where the real action was at. So and he saw that I had passion for it. Like I probably reminded him of him, you know, like just I was mad, right? I was really mad, and he said, we get mad, really, really mad, and we want to because we want to win. Like we wanted to win. We wanted
to get better.
We put so much time on this stuff, right? To get better. And of course, regional pride was a big thing because back then it's like defending your arcade. He went to my arcade and he pulled my pants down, dude. You know?
What?
That's how it was.
This
dude.
is
He
serious.
just pulled my pants down, dude. He pulled my
That's
pants
the most
down.
90s prank also. Yeah.
Dude, he just put me in the
Wow.
corner, whatever. But he just like he just shamed me in the corner, dude. It's like it was that bad, right?
Damn.
And
Wow.
like I was the best at the arcade, so I'm like I got shamed. I'm like, dude, you know, like I can't be having this. It's like I wasn't even worthy to go to LA or any of his arcades. I would just get beat up even worse. So luckily, there was he told me that there was a better arcade with a reputable manager. This arcade called Southern Hills Golfland, and they were throwing tournaments.
That's where it is.
Yeah, they were starting to throw tournaments. It wasn't even that far from my arcade. It was on the same street. It was just maybe 10, 15 minutes north from where I played. Right?
I see.
Yeah, so like driving distance wise. So like and that's where I started to practice more, and I would see better players that I didn't know. Like there was just they had token deals, like it was cheaper some days.
Yeah.
Right. So the machines were like pristine. They were like the best I've ever seen. It's so clean. Right?
Maintained really well.
Yeah, they were
that matters in the US.
really, really well, dude. And like they had all the latest games there too. Like they just on showcase, like they designed that place, like the arcade. As soon as you walk in, they knew exactly what would attract the customers.
Okay.
Oh,
so they knew what they were doing.
Like proper, like business.
They, the left side immediately they had a row of pinball, right? And when you go right, then you have like these showcase cabinets where it's like you know, Virtual On or like you know, Virtual Fighter, like the expensive looking cabinets, and then it goes and it puts you in the
big
pit.
Astro City ones.
Yeah, and then it puts you in the pit where the most popular fighting games are. You know, like whatever Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat version or Tekken. Like they knew how to design that as like.
Did they even have the consideration of people are gonna like sit around and watch these matches? We'll put some space behind the seats or if it's a standing cabinet like did they have enough space for the crowd and spectators too for the popular games?
It wasn't like crazy big, but like so since we're kind of getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, but as Southern Hills Golfland got more popular and I started to become that arcade's champion, they like you know I was in a good relationship with the manager there, which inevitably got me a job there.
Nice,
right? And he put showcase monitors on top that showed
so people can watch from a distance.
They would have spectator viewing monitors for people to watch like the two cabinets.
That's so ahead of their time.
None of my arcades did that.
Wow, that was like
God.
Okay.
But see, two cool things here. One is like back in the day, from one arcade to another, like what Vaya described, he didn't know that arcade existed. The Golflands arcade existed from his local arcade. Yeah. And the second fact is that it was only 10 minutes drive away from one arcade to another. There were days that I still like miss that if this arcade didn't work out, I can actually go to another arcade. And they were either driving or walking distance.
Yeah. But that's all you had, right? Nobody had these games at their house. So even Mike Watson finding a place for Alex Valle that's super important back then. Whereas nowadays you can just, if you have a console or whatever, you can play the games. But even just finding a good cabinet and an arcade that's not like too grimy or shady.
That they have well-maintained machines.
Yeah. So that's another big thing back then. But even just having a tournament is a big deal too. Like, I mean, nowadays, like people complain there's too many tournaments going on. There's too many online this, too many online. I'm sure like Alex sometimes listens to that. It's like, yo, when I was like, back then I was looking for tournaments to prove myself. And like, there's people complaining about like too many. There's like actually tournaments and stuff. So I guess you finally did find the tournaments at one point because of your connection to Mike Watson. Now, what were the tournaments that you did well in that kind of brought you to the next level and got you the recognition? Because really, it's the tournaments that prove people more than anything. If you don't have tournaments, you don't have like the famous top players or the people that are considered national level or whatever, right? So what were the tournaments that you were the most pivotal in terms of like you're like, okay, now I'm actually like one of the best in the country?
Okay, so remember we had the conversation about meeting Watson during the Alpha 1 era, right? And it was fairly new, right? It was like a couple months in for the game, right? And he was beating me with Guy, right? So he knew the cheap stuff already, okay? Like, if you know Guy in Alpha 1, like the redizzy stuff, and he has a kick alpha counter, you can't roll and you cross up or bush and grab.
With Alpha 1, another fun discovery I found is Guy and some other characters, their crouching punches are low.
Oh yeah, that seems like a oversight by the. Crouching.
Only recently I found out. I'm like, of course, like we all know, fighting games kick buttons while crouching are low. That's like a common sense thing.
Yeah.
But like punches are low. That's kind of weird.
Yeah, well, that's
Alpha 1 was a
that's like
weird. Yeah,
that's what happens in Tekken. But in Street Fighter, the rule is generally crouching and punch is not going to hit low. But like I think that was just like a programming oversight or something. But the game was kind of jank.
Whether
right?
it was deliberately done or not, but it was a fun discovery.
But
go ahead. Sorry for interrupting.
No worries. So, after that meeting, like we didn't really talk right away afterwards. Like I just had to like recompose myself and get back into the grind. And then we met up a few more times. He saw that I was improving. He just took me under his wing. I just listened to everything he said. He was just the way that he treated his circle, man. He would buy us fast food all the time. He was like, "Hey, man,
nice.
I got some
the best kind of friend."
Yeah, dude, he was like a really amazing mentor, man. He would just take care of us. He would have like a decked out car before any of us, man. He had like nice ass cars and would drive us around, and I remember all that, man. And finally he tells me like, "Hey, you're finally getting better, and I think it would be a good idea for you to come with some of us to a tournament in Las Vegas," right? And I'm like Las Vegas, right? What?
That's a big jump.
So like Circus was having a tournament, right? This is a community built tournament, right? In another arcade. This wasn't nothing official. This wasn't like an Evo retro or anything back then. This was just another community member in Las Vegas like hosting a little thing over there, right? So I didn't know any of the organizers or any of that, right? I just knew that Watson said some players are coming from like of course, the best players from SoCal, some players from San Diego, NorCal, locals in Las Vegas and Arizona, etc. Like just like the pockets of the best early West Coast areas, right? Yep. And I went, man, and I only brought like $100 with me at the time, and at the time, like 1995,
that was quite a lot.
$100, it could kind of get you pretty far, but we were going for 2 days, right? So I didn't know how to budget these things at the time. So that's all I brought, right? And that money went really quick. Of course, I wasn't old enough to gamble. But if you think about like pitching in for like gas or like getting food at certain times of the day, and then this is a thing that's not talked about much at all, but like you have to pay for your own games.
Wait, not old enough to gamble. How old were you back then, if you don't mind me asking?
1995, I was 17.
I see. Oh, okay. So you're just like barely below. Okay.
But you have to pay for your own game too. You have to pay the coins, the quarters.
You had to pay for your own games not just practice. Like we were there the day before, so practicing too.
Even the tournament.
Yeah, but during the tournament, you have to pay for your own games. So like
wow. Real deal.
Yeah. That's the tournament business for arcades, right? Like it guarantees them to get business on tournaments. Right. So
of course,
So I played. I saw John Choi was there with some of the best NorCal players at the time.
Nice.
Oh, NorCal.
This was an actual thing, right? And this is where I learned that like the rivalry between NorCal and SoCal was really like strong, right? Because they always had differences and disagreements of who was actually the best in Street Fighter 2 and up to Super Turbo back in the days. Like I wasn't in that rivalry at all. So, anyways, Alpha 1, I was doing okay, and then I was bummed out, man. Like I ran out of money. I ran out of money. and I
Oh, you
didn't
ran out
wanna
of money
ask
Wait,
my
during
friends.
during the tournament?
Yeah, I ran out of money mid tournament. I didn't want to ask my friends. I
Wow.
was like, shoot, I didn't want to embarrass them, dude. So like, I was like, my head down, and I remember this guy came up. He goes, hey, young blood, don't worry about it, man. Here, gave me like a stack of quarters. Go finish up your tournament run. I'm like, oh, dude, thank you so much.
Oh, a lifeline.
Wow.
There are
Yeah,
good
so
people
like
in
An
this world.
angel, yeah.
There's a good. Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so,
And then how
like-
did that go?
Yeah, so dude, that really remotivated me, right? And then I got to play one of NorCal's players, Tony No, I believe his name is, and he beats me, puts me to losers, and
Okay.
then
So it was still double elimination.
actually no,
back
no,
then.
no, I'm sorry. I actually didn't get put losers by him. I got put into losers by John Choi. So
Oh,
John
that's
Choi.
the
John
first time
Choi.
I played John
The one
Choi
and
in this
only.
game, and it just like exactly like Watson, he wouldn't like his is such a beautiful textbook style of Street Fighter that he wouldn't let me get started. I couldn't get in, and he eventually just withered me down. Right, so he beat me
Yeah.
clean, and then I made a really good losers run until I fought Tony No, and I lost to him. So I think I got like 4th or tied for 5th at that tournament.
Well, still
and it was
Okay.
really well for your
Watson
first
and-
tournament. Mm.
Yeah, it was John and Watson for the grand finals of that one. And I think John won that
Okay.
one. Yeah.
Okay.
So
That is awesome. Do you know if that was ever like recorded or like is there
No,
a-
dude, this is 1995, bro.
Oh,
Yeah.
no
it would have
camcorders or
to be like camcorder, VHS, or
VHSs, yeah.
nobody really did direct feed at the time yet. Like
Of
it
course,
was,
of
it,
course.
it was
But I was
coming.
hoping at least, someone like videographed something like that.
No. This is a lot of this stuff was still underground, just kind of like
Right.
documented in
Would've been
like
cool.
magazines or stuff. But yeah, so that one really boosted up my confidence, and like I was getting there, right? I was
Cool.
beating people from different
Yeah.
regions. I was like on the path, and then where the kind of like mentor protege or student true rivalry came when I played Watson in Alpha 2, the very first Alpha 2 tournament at Southern Hills Golfland. And that's where I finally beat him. Yeah.
That's pretty
Ah.
cool. And you did mention you went through the losers bracket run. So was double elimination even before Las Vegas very common when you played the older Street Fighters, and whenever there was a tournament, was it always the double elims?
For the most part, yes. There were some single elimination tournaments for sure, but there was definitely like the ones where the community kind of ran them. Like they knew
Right,
that double
right,
lim
right.
was the better one, and the seating was random still though. Like we would,
Like
Yeah.
shuffled, yeah?
they would just shuffle. Like you cut numbers up, and the players just pick and
Numbers in
that's
a
where
hat, kinda,
that's where you
yeah.
put in the bracket, right? What's funny about that is I didn't really care where they put me. I was that cocky
Right.
at the time. I'm like, man,
You're just gonna win,
Ah.
man.
Yeah, just
all you
like-
do is
just
like
put me in there,
yeah, just
man.
win.
I was just excited to
It's
play.
a champion
But yeah,
champion
Yeah.
mindset, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess so. That's kind of like, I guess if you beat Mike Watson, you're gonna be someone known in the community as like as a good player, I imagine, in tournament too. And I'm sure it was at grand finals that you met him and in that tournament and beat him finally, or was it like kind of dramatic, or was it just kind of like, oh, okay, well, I guess I'm good enough now, or I don't know. Did Mike take it well? Did Mike like like throw something, or was he just like very
Like,
calm and
so,
I don't
okay.
know, like
No, we definitely remember it. Both of us remember it very well. He was playing Charlie, aka Nash, and I was Ken.
Nash.
Okay, and I just knew the guile type of style that that good players like that play.
Zoning and
right? Zoning
Yeah.
you, right? And he kept throwing me. He made me in Alpha 2. and even Alpha 1 you can air block the fireball, so it wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
every time I would clear a fireball, he would make me like land on like a normal, so he can get perfect spacing into another sonic boom. And I just took note of that,
Yeah.
right? And I didn't do anything. I didn't do anything crazy yet. But eventually, I did an empty jump into level 3 to win that grand final.
Oh, you did an empty jump at the level 3.
That is sick.
Wow.
Yeah.
They needed to film that stuff.
So like I just started to understand that there's things where like sometimes you gotta save, and there's things where like you overwhelm them. It just depends, right? And since he's like a player that I respected so much, he's just gonna adapt to everything that I throw at him. So it was probably best to try to figure out something that he's doing too much and then exploit it where I needed it. So
At the right moment. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
at the
that's an
right
interesting
moment.
aspect of your gameplay too. I mean, I think you're very known for like the psychological aspects of mind reading. You know your opponents very well, and I guess this is kind of the play style that you've been carrying throughout all the Street Fighters. Even if you look at the modern Street Fighters that you play, I'm sure like all these things that you learned from these old days carry over. But I guess so. You have this play style that you have, and at one point you're going to be playing even more different regions. I'm wondering, maybe you can correct the timeline for me. But was it after that? Did you go? Was there like a East Coast rivalry that happened first, or did it go a little bit right into the Japan rivalry? That there's a famous moment with you and Daigo playing Alpha 3. That one was filmed. That's like all over YouTube. You can see that.
So this would be the journey of like that Vegas tournament, and then like
like
how it became you going all the way to like the Japan versus.
Or did you have to like go
Yeah.
prove yourself to NorCal first, or like how is it? How did the journey from there go to all the way to you being the one that gets to fight Daigo in Alpha 3, a Japanese top player?
yeah, so good question. So the win after Watson, right? Like this is Alpha 2. Game was brand new. I think we were just a month in the game, right? Nobody knew crazy customs and the VI ACC stuff yet. But I figured out this game quicker than anybody. Like I didn't lose any tournament.
Nice.
I went to every single major hotspot in Southern California. Like no problem, dude. It was like I was beating everybody in my sleep. Like it was just what that did was bring more business to Southern Hills Golfland. Like they had no choice. They had no choice but to come in the weekend or to call to see if I was there, right? Because people were just like internet was starting to come out, right? More
News groups
public
and stuff,
usage, right? This is like 96 now. Because
Dial-up internet.
Yeah. So like news groups and stuff, and I was still oblivious to this. I didn't own a computer at the time, but there was a lot of chatter going around about me that I didn't know about. Okay. So then the Battle by the Bay tournament was announced, and this was the Evo predecessor event. This is like their first Tom and Tony Cannon's first internet based, like internet gathering tournament, whatever you want to call it, right? So like nobody really posts tournaments on the internet like this at the time. People were posting flyers, word of mouth, and so there was just a lot of talk. There was a lot of talk of people saying, "No, my region's the best, and this region's the best," blah 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 blah. And then some people were speaking up for me, like, "Yo, you guys haven't played this kid, this in SoCal named Alex, and he's beating everybody, right?" So Tom and Tony Cannon's like, "You know what? Enough talk. Here's a tournament. It's gonna be at Sunnyvale. It's in the summer. Come get it." It was Street Fighter Alpha 2, and it was for Super Turbo, and I didn't even I wasn't that good of a Super Turbo player yet, but people from the Middle East came for that tournament for Super Turbo.
What?
Yeah,
Super Turbo. Damn.
yeah, it's crazy.
Wow,
But,
okay.
So Alpha 2 was so crazy that now like everybody is on the same type of hype train that they think their regions are best. Like
Okay.
their bubbles are talking now. So
Yeah.
and like my same crew, with Watson and them, we went up to NorCal, like as we went to Las Vegas, same exact crew, right? We're just
Okay.
now that I'm more seasoned,
Nice.
and they're kind of guaranteeing me that, like, oh yeah, you got this, man. And like, I'm just a kid, right? They're hyping me up, and they're just like, don't make friends with the enemy up there. Just go there, take their money, and
Oh,
whatever.
the
right?
rivalry was real.
Yeah, dude, just go over there, beat their
Oh my
ass,
God.
and right. And they were telling me, yeah, this is like John Choi's like home. This is like dude, they're freaking setting me up for this thing. They're, yeah, man, like remember that guy that put you in losers in Alpha One in Las Vegas?
Oh,
Yeah, you gotta
man.
beat his ass in his home turf.
Yeah.
Now, if
Pressure,
you can
that's
do
pressure,
that,
yeah.
if you can do that, because California at the time, it was without question, we were the best, like, state, region, West Coast for Street Fighter in the
Okay,
U.S. at
yeah.
least. Okay, it was
Yeah.
just
So
without
being the best
question.
in California was like that was the most prestigious thing that you could do.
Yeah, like
in the
like
U.S.
Watson
Street Fighter
proved
scene.
it already. He went to the Midwest and the East Coast, and he's just destroyed people, like, no problem in Classic, right? I'm destroying people in the Alpha Series now, right? And then we get to the Battle by the Bay tournament. Of course, lo and behold, I got to play John Choi in grand finals, and winners finals, I put him into losers, right? And
Oh, okay.
then he adapts, right? And he resets the bracket in grand finals, and we are playing freaking last game, last round. I picked Sagat, and he was still
Oh.
Ken. And I did probably, how there's a moment 37. This is moment number one. This is what I like to
Number
call
one.
moment number one.
Moment
Yeah,
one.
so-
Okay.
Yeah, dude. Okay, last game, last round. Choi gets like a 70, almost 80% life lead. Okay, I'm
Okay.
Sagat. All I have is my resources left. I get one good jump in and I custom him, and then he's in the corner. I jump, light kick, crouching medium punch. I miss my uppercut. I do a fireball. It comboed. But it's on recoil,
Okay.
right? So
Right,
yeah.
he's recovering, and he customs, and I uppercut his custom to win.
Oh,
Oh,
Yeah, so
damn.
that video must have gone
video is
wild.
up. That video is
Yeah,
up.
I think I seen this.
Yeah,
in
okay.
a highlight somewhere.
No, we're gonna have to
Yeah.
dig that up. Yeah, that's insane. Yeah.
But did you do it out of reaction when he did the spot?
Yeah. I was reacting. Like, that was my
Okay,
only
okay.
option. Like,
Right,
if he
right,
would have
yeah.
done, like, if he had Galaxy Brain and just mashed the fireball, I would have died, right?
Yeah,
yeah,
just
of
start throwing
course.
fireballs, right? But no,
Yeah, yeah.
he activated custom and tried to do a normal, and I just was mashing.
Yeah,
uppercut.
just
I saw the
uppercutted it.
flash. I'm like,
Oh.
boom, right?
Yeah.
Everything was just happening like back and forth. It was like dude, it was just insane, dude. I was so annoyed, and I was so like, damn, I can't, like, almost in my head, I was trying to get it out of my head, like, this guy's gonna come back and win, like, he's like doing
yeah.
the same thing he did to me in Alpha One. It's such a such a freaking beautiful mind, man, that John Choi. But I had it.
Yeah.
I was that kid, and I had the hunger, and eventually I beat him. And that's what really, that one right there was what really propelled me to, like, be who I am from the arcade generation, right? Like the Alpha One stuff, like, it was just the hardcore within the competitive aspect, but this was like
Yeah.
nationwide now. People were like, yeah, this kid from SoCal, he beat some of the guys that were, winning every NorCal and SoCal tournaments from the Street Fighter 2 era, right? So definitely the torch was passed then, and
Yeah.
this was Alpha 2. And I won several mini tournaments after that, and then Alpha 3 doesn't come out first. You know what comes out first?
Wasn't it 3? Yeah.
Oh, new
Street Fighter 3
generation.
comes out
Okay.
before Alpha 3, right? So this is like a movie, dude. This is okay, bro. Like, so I get a special invitation from this guy named Jason Wilson that runs.
Okay.
At the time, he ran like a nickel. Oh Jesus Christ! The event called like the Midwest Championships, right? And
Okay.
okay, in Chicago area, right? In the Midwest.
Right.
Okay. He says, "Hey, you know, we would like to invite you to our tournament. Watson came over here during Super Turbo era, or Super Street Fighter 2 era, not Super Turbo era, and he won that tournament. So you're like the best in SoCal. We would like to invite you over here." And they also send the same invitation to John Choi, right?
Okay.
To go
Okay.
to the Midwest, and they say, "Here's a standby." Like, I didn't know what the hell this was. We can give
Okay.
you the standby tickets for flying over there. It just costs you $20, and you can you can fly over here. I'm like, that's dope.
Wow.
Okay, standby ticket.
It's like a free flight. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, okay. If you guys don't know what a standby ticket is, yeah, it's a ticket to get
Oh,
there.
that's right.
But
If someone doesn't get their seat or does a no show, right?
yeah, if there's a no show,
Yeah.
right, or whatever, right.
Yeah.
If there's a no show,
Or if the tickets don't
cancellation
sell
whatever,
or something,
you
yeah.
you get to fill that spot. But if the flight is full, you have to wait for another flight.
Another one. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I gambled, right? So I went with a few friends,
Oh.
right? And John went with a few friends. We had some connecting flights, right? This is a freaking amazing story. So sit back. So we met at Arizona, I believe. Yes, we met at Arizona airport, meaning that my flight got into Arizona. Choi's flight got into Arizona. And I was like super hyped, like excited to go to this tournament. And when I see John, he's at a payphone with the yellow pages in his hand, looking all salty and pissed off. And I'm like, "Hey, John, what's up?" And he's like, hey, what's going on, John? And he like puts the phone like down. He's like, "Alex, so I'm trying to find a flight back home. All the flights to Chicago are booked. Like, this is a waste of time. I'm not having it," right? Because he's the smart one. He's older. He knows what's up. He's been to this situation, right? And I'm like, "No, John, no. We should go, man. Like, let's just figure it out. Maybe we can see if you can, like, I don't know, call to see if there's another one, or we can go later or something." And then he goes, "Well, I mean, I guess we can see if there's a later flight or a later connecting flight." I didn't know any of this crap. Right. And so he's
being
like,
a world warrior is
what?
difficult.
We found a standby for I think this one was for Las Vegas or Colorado, one of those two, man. This is a long time ago. And so I'm like, okay, cool. But it's not until the morning. I'm like, wait, what? We have to stay here in the airport all day? Like, yeah. But no, actually we don't. My sister lives here, so we can stay at her house and then go.
Oh, wow.
That's what John Choi said. And then we can go in the morning. She'll take us back to the airport, and we go to I think it was Las Vegas. Okay, yeah, it was.
Okay.
Las Vegas. Then we had another friend, APOC, that we met up, and to kill time, he picked us up from the airport, and we went to his arcade, Mary Kay's. Okay. Mary Kay's arcade was the hot spot at the time. The pro players from Las Vegas played at, and then me and John had long Alpha 2. We played Alpha 2 for such a long time there, just to kind of settle the time.
Must have been a lot of quarters too.
Yeah, and I'm just gonna say that my Zangief did work.
All right. I was gonna ask the result, but
I knew the game so ahead of everyone still, and he was still crazy good, but I was at a crazy level at that point. But he just okay, cool, you got it, right? Anyways, so Las Vegas, get back to the airport. It's time to go, and then of course we're hit with the flights booked completely. So
of course,
right.
Yeah.
And then we had one more last dish effort, but we are gonna be a day late. I think John at randomly asked "Hey, how does first class here work? Can we upgrade the ticket to first class?" And he's like, "Yeah. How much is it?" "Oh, it's like $40 or something like that. All right, we'll take it. Is it open? How many seats?
Oh.
Boom.
What?
We took it.
only.
Yeah, and then when
Yeah.
we got
Okay.
on that flight, and they're like, the first thing is like, "Would you like a cookie?" I'm like, yeah, sure. It was the best.
Yo,
fucking
yeah,
cookie.
40
It was
bucks,
the
man.
best cookie we've ever had, ever, bro.
$40.
Yeah,
Oh
Yeah,
my
so-
god.
man.
Yeah, so
Yeah, that's
Okay.
some Home Alone shit. Getting all the
Yeah.
way
but
to your
th-
destination. Yeah.
So during that time, like that's kind of where me and John built our relationship because we were like rivals
Right.
and then we just became friends. You know, we were just like I was talking
Yeah.
shit to him on the white courtesy phone, like, hey John Choi, hey, can I speak with John Choi on the white courtesy phone while he was sleeping? So then I fucking went to the side and I saw his ass walk to the white courtesy phone and I'm like, yeah,
Oh.
fuck you, dude. I was like, yeah, and he would look at me and was like,
Oh,
what the
man.
hell?
god.
Oh man, that's so
Bro, that's
funny.
what we do, right? We're boys. Like that's how we break the ice.
Yeah.
So we just fuck with each other.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
That's
yeah.
like-
Banter.
Some silly
yeah,
stuff.
dude.
Mhm.
Like what kind of guy? If he can like just mess, if I can mess around with him like that, and he can mess around with me, and he's a good guy, you know. But he,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
like,
yeah.
but yeah, like so we went to this tournament, and I was pissed. I couldn't enter Alpha 2 because I was
Oh,
already
it
late.
already started. Yeah.
Another guy won it, right? Omar, which was also an amazing player for Alpha 2. But then Street Fighter 3, John won that and I got second. So like
Okay.
Oh, okay.
yeah. So like it's that helped with people seeing how good we were because like we played everything. Like,
Yeah.
people were playing us in Super Turbo, Alpha 2, Street Fighter 3, and they're like, damn, you guys are the real deal. This is crazy. And people would just
Yeah.
crowd around
Getting
to
your
watch.
names out there.
They've never seen gameplay like this top level before in that region. So that's just more of
Yeah.
a reason for them to like pay attention to some of the other events that we were attending to, which the help of the internet and you know, thanks to Jason Wilson and everybody that ran that tournament to invite us at the time. You know, it was just such a great thing, a great experience with everyone. Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
that's I mean that makes it more meaningful too whenever you go through that much trouble and when people go through that much shit for this thing that they care about and you know other people wouldn't understand. Yeah, obviously that's gonna bring some camaraderie, right? So I guess so that is the U.S. scene. It's interesting because nowadays we have such an international scene because obviously there's the internet. Modern FGC is just it's just regular to have people with different flags that are playing each other. But back then it was kind of like to have an international match. I mean, obviously there was not even did they. Of course they didn't have rollback. They didn't have any kind of like online play for these games. So to actually have an international match, you'd have to have people fly over to an international flight, which costs a ton of money. So I'm guessing that it was very uncommon to even have like international matches at the time. How was the like? So there was a lot of like trash talk among the regions on the internet for within the U.S. scene. But I mean, how did the U.S. Japan rivalry kind of start, or did that really exist back then? And in a way, like I think you're kind of the pioneer in like having an international rivalry in Street Fighter for playing for Team USA. So I guess did that really did it get to a point where it was kind of frequent enough to where you can say that there was kind of U.S. and Japan could kind of show each other or their skills, or was it not until like way later with like SBO and stuff like that where that started becoming a thing? So how was the international competition like during that period?
Yeah, so Japan, they were always ahead in everything, even including like tournaments. Like, I don't know if you read this interesting part about the history of Street Fighter 2 when Street